And what I always found fascinating is the drive and speed and hunger for driving innovation and that process forward here. And in the end, there's a little bit of and you were talking about Niall, about the finding the right people that can drive something like this and can invigorate the innovation thoughts and process within a company. And essentially there is a sort of self-selection here, because the people that uproot their lives in at home and come to the Bay Area are already the more adventurous ones that want to build something, that want to come here. So you have a lot of like-minded people coming together here that that are living to yeah, build something from scratch and drive that process forward. So, Nikki, I'm happy to jump into questions as well, and where we want to take it, and better understand what you're looking for as well.
I think it's interesting to spread out the process of growth hacking. I'm sure that's your, I'm confident that's your responsibility. You're director of growth at SalesHood, right?
I'm VP marketing, but growth is definitely part of it. And so leading all marketing functions, and I had growth titles in the past, which is all about, yeah, leading a growth process and making it part of the company culture. So, and Nikki, I actually lost my
experiment. Maybe you'd like to talk about experiment as part of the fabric of the organization.
Yes. So let me share my screen here. Close this. And so the that's better. So even at Jawbone, it was really about, and I've been to all the growth hackers conferences. I'm friends with the guy who coined the term growth hacking, and been part of this community for quite some time. And the idea behind it is to align cross-functionally across all your different teams and orgs to have a fast and high tempo process of ideation and experimentation. So it's really about identifying ideas, prioritizing them, and testing on an ongoing basis. So what that means is that you create a cross-functional alignment. And at Jawbone, we had representatives from finance, from engineering, from marketing, from ops, from design, and yeah, a cross-functional team to come together, because, or from customer success as well, to also look at all the different sides of the company. If you only have people from marketing or only people from sales, it's not going to work out. You need that kind of like cross-functional alignment as well, and the input from so many parts of the company. And I was leading growth at Jawbone and Bird Eye, and at other companies as part of my overall job function. And yeah, you create a process of meeting at least once a week, maybe twice a week, to come up with ideas. And it's usually centered around your so-called North Star metric. So you might have a metric in the company that is kind of like encompasses your goals for the company. At Facebook, for instance, the North Star metric for success was for somebody who joins Facebook to gain at least 7 friends within the first 4 weeks. And so if you can define a metric as a measure of success for your company, then you can align your projects and ideas around reaching that North Star metric. So for them, Facebook doesn't make sense if you don't have any friends, meaning your feed is going to be empty and it's going to be pretty boring. So the main point that most people worked on at the time there was, how can we encourage people to add some friends, to find their friends easily, and to make it like a social experience? And the North Star metric can be different at different companies and can also change over time. And so at Jawbone, for some time, we had very low app engagement, meaning people got bored of the app. And then for a good half year or close to a year, we were working on all sorts of ideas of how we can make it a fun experience, kind of like gamified, and being able to compete with friends and whatnot within the Jawbone app in order to increase mobile app engagement and people using the devices. Because if you stop using the device, then those were fitness trackers. If you stop using the device, you obviously are losing your customers over time. So it's centered around your North Star metric. There are different levers within the funnel. They are similar to what you know as a marketing funnel, where you have like the customer acquisition, to activating them on your website, to them maybe referring other people, to retaining them, and then turning that into revenue as well. And so that's a means of categorization of your ideas. And in order to get to a point, at Birdeye, our backlog was like 300-400 projects, which means that you have ideas that you might discuss, but they might be a lot of effort, and low impact. And I have a slide after this one. But in the end, we use the so-called ICE score. And for each of those three letters, I, C, and E, impact, confidence, and ease, you give it a 1 to 10 score, and then get the average of that, and that is your ICE score. Meaning, if you have a high impact project, let me go to the next slide, actually. If you have a high value and low effort project, then it's something that you should prioritize really high. It's a low hanging fruit. But we were also pursuing projects that were high value, meaning that would drive your North Star metric, but it would be quite some engineering effort. So on the E side, you would give it a lower score because it's not that easy to implement. But in the end, it might be, I don't know, a whole new product or a totally different onboarding process. And it might take more time to work with the engineering team and the design team to make it all happen. But it's still something that you want to pursue at some point. But you want to aim for the high value, low effort ones. And at all the companies, we were running at least 5 to 10 experiments at a time. And experience means that you make adjustments to your app or your website. And experiment in that way means that you're doing A/B or ABC testing or conversion rate optimization. And the testing process is what it's all about. You create your baseline with your control website, which might be just your website as it is today. And then you make changes to it, and you create a whole new landing page or pricing page or homepage or new messaging. And you should only usually change one thing at a time, because you want to determine if changing, like you talked to 10 customers recently in your from a product marketing perspective, and you feel like this new messaging might resonate a lot better with our customers in order to understand what the company is doing. And so you can test that messaging, by driving usually about 50% of your traffic to that other version. But there might be also like more design related changes or flow changes or the way you position yourself. And so this is a good way to get to the prioritization process. And then you have the low effort, low value ones where you're not so sure, and that's the confidence, the C part of the I score. Sometimes you know that if we make this change, it's going to be very, very likely to have a positive impact on the metric that you're trying to influence. And so you give the C score a really high score. I'm 100% confident that it will improve our conversion rate, or our ACV or engagement or whatever your metric might be, significantly. And so you give it a high confidence score. But you might have ones where you're not as confident, but you're not so sure about it and how much impact they might have, because not all projects are gonna like improve things. The main point in the growth process is also to understand there is no silver bullet. You have to run many experiments all the time. And then one of them might take you to a 5x improvement. And some of them might have a lower conversion rate, and that's okay too. So you don't create just winners, but among all the projects and the processes that you are running, you will have some that might give you a real breakthrough. And that's why it's also so important to involve other teams cross-functionally, because somebody in customer success or in finance might have a totally different perspective on what it means to reach that metric, and you want to open it up and make it an even playing field, and have your intern or whoever it might be chime in with ideas as well, and treat them all equally. In the end, as you're the one who is leading the growth process, you can decide if you want to throw some ideas out because it just seem too nuts. But sometimes they are the ones that can make a big impact as well. So it starts with the ideas on the right hand side. It goes into the prioritization. You have the rapid experimentation across the entire customer journey. So that's what I meant with the acquisition, activation, referral, retention, revenue. And you keep testing, and it's part of your culture, and you do it all the time, and you have all the analytics in place to analyze what you're doing. For many of these things, we use Google Optimize, which is free. And you can run at least 5 experiments at a time, and we run them all the time. We have usually 3 versions of the homepage, 3 versions of the pricing page, 3 versions of the free trial page. Like all the high conversion pages are constantly being improved and tested. And that, again, you oftentimes can find some inspiration from other companies that have much larger teams and funds. So we sometimes look at the big unicorn companies where they have maybe growth teams that are 40, 50 people strong, and where they have established a lot of that, like Drift or Intercom. And so if they are testing something new, and there were some simple ones, like a combined button where you only have one input field, and it all, the button melts together with the input field, was actually a huge driver of conversion improvement for us at Bird Eye as well. And yeah, I think we saw it on Intercom first. And sometimes you make up something else that is your own, but getting that inspiration from other companies is not wrong. And then whoever initially sponsored the project or came up with the idea can also make sure that we analyze it properly. And at larger teams, you have data analysts or marketing analysts on your team. At Jawbone, it was the biggest analytics team I've ever worked with. We had 12 people who did nothing else than data analytics, and they were geniuses. They were and they really helped us to set these up as well. But in the end, a Google Analytics, which is also free, will help you find the data points that you might need as well. And then you create a regular cadence around it. And you have to have a clear hypothesis. We usually document all our ideas in Jira tickets, which is an Atlassian tool, originally more engineering related. But the process is a simple Google sheet, which has your description of the idea, and then you work in weekly sprints. Every week we pick up 5, 6, 7, 10 small projects that we need to design and implement from an engineering perspective. They are part of the current sprint, and then you implement them depending on how much traffic you have on your site or within your app or whatever you're trying to optimize. You run your experiments for 2 to 3 weeks, and then you analyze and report the findings and share that with the company. And if you make a breakthrough that is kind of like more universal, meaning the short description of the company is now much easier to understand and much clearer, then you obviously communicate that to the rest of the company as well. And you might change your entire pitch, because you learned by talking to your customers better what they relate to. And then it's helpful to the sales team and the description that you have on your LinkedIn page and Facebook and wherever. But this is a good overview slide to describe what kind of the growth process looks like. And Nikki, I actually lost my my previous deck. I was just looking for it earlier, where I had some slides on my own journey. But apparently I created them on the Birdeye account, and they're gone now.
And I'm not sure if you shared them with us once, but there is definitely a recording from the previous Zoom session.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get it back somehow. But that's it in a nutshell. And I think the main idea behind it is to make it part of how you function as a company. Because if you don't experiment and are open to it as part of your DNA and your culture, then you stop improving. And if you make it this kind of rapid process and part of your DNA and part of how you function as a company, then you will have your breakthroughs 100%. I can guarantee that. And not every experiment will be great, but 1 out of 15 or 1 out of 20 will have a significant impact on your North Star metric. And you need the executive buy-in. You need your leadership to be behind this and to support it, so that nobody is surprised as well. Because I mean, especially on the Birdeye website, each and every one of you could go on the website right now and might see 3 different versions of the homepage. And so and obviously sometimes if the CEO goes on the website and sees oh, there's a new description on how we describe ourselves, you need that alignment as well. You need the support from the leadership team as well. And only then you can make it part of your DNA, and then you can succeed. And I mean, that's how you lead companies into hyper growth. And that's how many companies, especially here in the Bay Area, making that part of your DNA can lead to these kind of like breakthroughs. And in the beginning for Dropbox or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, there might be really small levers that these companies took that made it so successful. I mean, somebody at Dropbox came up with the idea of like, hey, we only give you, I don't know, 2 gigabytes to start with, and each time you invite another person, you get another 2 gigabytes of extra storage. And people run out of storage all the time. And yeah, I think maybe Nikki can use it too. So I'll invite Nikki to it, and then Nikki runs out of storage and invites Marcus. And that was a huge driver for them in the beginning, to have this kind of like referral system absolutely built into the product itself. And there are many more examples. Maybe I'll create a new kind of like deck. This is just one slide of my own deck for my marketing plan. So to show some more examples that we all are aware of that came from growth teams. And all the big tech companies have dedicated growth teams. And any company can make it part of their DNA, because it's not my entire job function. And all these people from customer success and from finance and from operations, it was not their day job to do growth. They came into a meeting once or twice a week, shared their ideas of what we can do. They bring a different perspective to it, and know a different part of the company. And so I think that is really the key to success there. And you learn a lot about your own company as well. I was, prior to that, with software companies, never privy to what it takes to in regards to supply chain and logistics of a physical product. And they came up with ideas on how we can change the packaging, for instance, in order to maybe influence our metric. And so that maybe wouldn't have been something that the rest of the team really would have thought about or so, or from a finance perspective, or from a true engineering perspective. Like, I think this is something that we can do in order to I don't know, make this process really easy. And then you prioritize, test, and analyze, and you will be successful. And that's what I do at companies. And once they get to a certain stage, I don't think I would be happy in a 40,000 plus employee company that has very strict processes and a lot of people that have been there for a very long time and don't want to change things. That's not the culture that I would thrive in. And that's why I tend to join the earlier startups. I launched 3 companies into existence. Jaja was acquired after a 4-year run where I did the entire journey from being part of the initial team pre-launch to growing the company to a couple of $100 million in revenue, and like 80 million customers, and then it was acquired by O2 Telefonica. And Huami is one of the largest manufacturers of wearables worldwide, and we took it public in 2018. So being able to be on the floor for the bell ceremony on the New York Stock Exchange. And so and like I said, I've also seen companies that we had to ultimately shut down, because it's not all of it is just this process. You also have to create a solid product market fit and a business model that works over time. But yeah, at this point, I would love to jump into more of a conversation and questions as well, to maybe answer your questions that have been.
Frederik, I have 2 questions. First one,
Yeah.
because it's so recent and it's going through the ceiling like a rocket, Clubhouse. Are they
Yeah.
at a size where they already run experiments, or are they just trying to catch up with their growth?
No, they run experiments all the time for sure.
Okay. So
Yeah, especially on the onboarding side and in the beginning. Yeah, 100%.
Okay. And the second question is, you talk a lot about websites. My hypothesis is that you can run experiments on everything. The question is, how much can you apply the growth hacking process on experiments that are offline?
I think you can do just as many experiments in an offline perspective as well. Sometimes it's a little bit harder, like changing the packaging and seeing if that has any influence on your metrics is a little bit harder. But even in a physical store environment, you can make changes and create a whole different flow through the store, and you're guiding people differently, and you're creating maybe a different atmosphere or lighting or color scheme or whatever it might be. You create different sorts of incentives for people to come back. So I don't think it's bound to websites at all. I think you can create it in every environment, offline or online, in an app or in a physical environment, and even merging those two together.
I'm opening up the floor to everyone here. Marco, I'm sure that you have a lot of questions.
Yeah, actually I do. So, I mean, with Moonshot Pirates, we're currently 8 people in our core team. So 8 people, 6 of them, 5 of them sitting together all the time. And to us, it feels like every step that we do on a daily basis is an experiment. Nikki is currently trying actually to help us a little bit to structure it a little bit. We did that prioritizing last week. We're trying to develop somehow a structure for our growth hacking. But my question is simply, since we are this small, what is your experience? What would you say is a good size of company to start with such a process? To a certain extent right now, it still feels like it's actually more work than it is a benefit for us. So I don't know. It's we're still somehow in between. And how maybe the follow-up question: how do you get the team then actually on board when everybody's anyway overwhelmed with a lot of other tasks all the time?
So usually you can only really invest into growth when you have found product market fit. At Swip and Lumo, we hadn't even really found product market fit. And so what's the point of growing or trying to grow a product that is not fulfilling a customer's need very well? So the size of the company doesn't matter, meaning if you are 3 people and you found a real niche that fulfills a need within the market that lots of people need, go for it. Like experiment the hell out of it. Have 3 different onboarding processes, change the messaging, keep improving on all parts where you have these kind of like conversion event happening. And so it's not about the size of the company, but you cannot invest into a growth team pre-product market fit, because then you're just, I don't know, trying to grow a leaky bucket, and you're constantly your water is running out because it's just not sticky. I mean, what point is it and to drive, I don't know, 5 million people or 100,000 people to your product if they're gonna leave after 2 days because it's kind of like I don't get what this is about. And so that's where I would draw the line. But in regards to effort, it does not need to be a large effort. You just have to make it part of your DNA. I mean, the people in ops and finance, they joined our weekly growth meeting, and they contributed ideas and they were engaged and they loved it. But it was like an hour a week. Everybody can do that. It's not like it's the same as like, oh, I don't have time to work out. I mean it's if you want to do that, then you just do it. And we don't have to find more excuses to not do it. And so and it's the same with the growth process. It's not a lot of extra work, and you could have a such fundamental impact on your company. And you have to think about your North Star metric first. And like I said, that might change from where you are within the company. Maybe in the beginning, it's really just to find 5 customers who are validating your idea so that you can get to product market fit. And then you align everybody on how do we get these first 5 paying customers for our product. And then maybe
I think you still wanted to say something, right?
Yeah. Is it just me?
No. Hi.
Okay, you're back.
You're back.
so yeah, I think it's never too early, other than you have to have some sort of product market fit.
All right. And may I still ask you, how much effort does it take for the head of growth, like in your case, what you did at what a Birdseye?
But yeah.
The Birdseye. How much of your time takes it for you, to coordinate the whole team and to how did you manage that?
I would say the growth part is only like maybe 5 to 10% of my overall work, because there are so many other things that also need to get done from a demand generation perspective and product marketing and all sorts of other projects. But then oftentimes you have other people supporting the implementation of your project. So I work very closely with the engineering team, which is based out of India. And I have calls with them every couple of days at night in order to follow through on the projects that we need to implement, because they put it up on staging. I check it out, say, okay, these 3 versions look great, or make these adjustments. And then we push it live. And then within days, you can see results as well. And you keep improving. I mean, you can drive your conversion rate from initially like maybe 2% to 4% to 10% to 15%, and keep going from there. And at some point, you might have like the absolutely ideal flow, and you reach the people at the right time, at the right moment, through other means, and you get into I mean, pages that have like a 35% conversion rate.
Very cool. Thank you.
Frederik, I'm fascinated. I spent quite a lot of time in the past in big ticket items where the ability, the real question for us has always been pricing. And when you have a small volume of big ticket sales, it's really hard to experiment with pricing. And it's always perceived to be hard.
I think it's always perceived to be hard. Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that later part. That you in order, and that's what I meant with executive buy-in and support as well. You won't be able to drive a growth culture within a company where the executive leadership is not in support of you. Because you might have to turn things upside down. And just because you did it for the past 20 years the same way, it doesn't mean that it's going to survive in the future. I mean, we saw it with the publishing industry. All the ones that were not ready for change went out of business and didn't survive and are dead now. And so in order for you to thrive and keep evolving, you will sometimes have to make more dramatic changes. And if you have these big ticket items, maybe you can think about how you structure them differently. Are there now different components, and you can put them together as a certain bundle, or you even partner with another company, and you create a really symbiotic relationship where your product and theirs works really well, and therefore you can charge a much higher price or a lower price, and it's pushing you towards that thinking a little bit more outside the box, and being able to accept that even if you test something and doesn't work out, if you just test enough, you will have breakthroughs. And if you don't do it, you might just die as a company. And so that it's a kind of like simple formula, because you have to keep evolving and you have to keep innovating. And the growth process is pretty much the underlying foundation for that innovation. You're driving innovation by experimenting, ideating, and implementing those ideas. And so even with big ticket items, and maybe you just have done it the same way for a very long time, does not mean that they could not be changed.
Yeah, I'm probably going to draw the sort of environment I'm talking about is real estate, which tends to be big ticket, long implementation times.
Yeah.
Tremendously difficult for people to see change. I'm just looking at your office. It's a class of really outdated thinking and application, and the real estate pretty well, and construction pretty well everywhere. And I suppose the other one, which most of us probably get really concerned about, is the whole governmental stuff. You know, and if anything needs to start talking about iteration and fast regeneration and growth, and maybe just a growth of efficiency.
Yeah.
I mean, how does one change dinosaurs?
I mean, I had the discussion with a company here in Sacramento. They have been around for 20 plus years, and they come from a more traditional background. And you either get those dinosaurs on board, or you let them go. So it's pretty simple in that regard, because you might not survive as a company if you don't keep innovating. And you're talking about the real estate space. I mean, there are actually so many companies here in the Bay Area who are completely turning it upside down. There's a company called how's it, like no down payment or something, where you can buy a house without a down payment, or Robinhood, who invented a company where you can do trading without ever paying any fees, and they're like one of the biggest trading companies you can ever think of. And so I think in any industry you can shake things up, and be disruptive. And obviously sometimes there are outside factors that you cannot control, like government regulations. I certainly see that. But there are so many examples where people like thought a little bit outside the box and like, no, I think we can make this happen if we, I don't know, find this loophole, or approach it from a different direction. So I think any environment in any industry needs to be open to an innovation process. And I mean, we've all seen big companies where we thought they're too big to fail, and they're not. I mean, you can be a company that has been around for 100 years and did all the great things back then, but thought it's gonna stay that way forever, and then did not survive.
do you think it's about looking at the customer flow and just end to end and forgetting about the processes which you're currently using, and
Yes.
almost re-engineer the entire thing from end to end, and then see which are the bits which are causing either the blockage or isn't as agile as it might be, and then just asking why? Do you think that's a good starting point?
I think that's a very valid start. And in the end, some of our mantras at all the companies is to be extremely customer centric and put the customer needs at the focus of everything that you do, because in the end, those are our needs. I mean, we all want it to be easy and hassle-free and just get to the goal. I mean, identify what the goal is. Like, I want to achieve this thing by tomorrow, and right now it's a process that takes me like 7 weeks, and I have to go to a government building and get a permit and get a stamp there and do this and this. But just think about, like, this is the customer and this is the customer's need, and what are all the hurdles in between, and how can we solve for some of them and make that process easier. And there are actually plenty of companies who just made processes a lot easier. And if you can cut that time in half of what it was before, then you might have a huge business idea. I mean, that's how Uber and Lyft and a lot of these sharing economy companies, they're based on convenience of on an Instacart. I mean, I don't have to go to the store to get groceries. They come to my door, and that is very convenient, especially when I'm working most of the time. And so I think, yeah, the process thinking and thinking about your customers' needs is a really important one. And Neil, you had another question as well.
Yeah, it was actually very similar to Marcus. Is that a lot of the work I do is it's only a very small number, but with large corporates, and I relate very much to what you're saying about the frustrations. You said you fit very well with the smaller organizations rather than the large corporates.
Yeah.
And I understand that, and certainly from what you're saying, I understand why as well. I mean, what's interesting is that these large corporates, the ones I'm working with, like all of them, they want to grow. So, I mean, no question, they say, absolutely, we need to grow, we have to grow, we want to grow, and we want to be innovative. But there's a blockage somewhere, and it's around this, it really is, it's around the experimentation, the ability, willingness to take risk, maybe to, you know, to take a chance to do that. And I think that's the real frustration I have and challenge working with large corporates is intellectually everybody gets this idea of, well, yes, okay, experimentation, once they've been trained or once they've had a perspective, which doesn't take much, frankly, they understand it, they get it. But then you see their behaviors and their actions, and even small experiments, little things
are already frightening them.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that, you know, I'd be amazed if you have an answer to that, but is there anything that, because I think it's fairly common.
Yeah, I mean, they have to understand that it's a necessity. I mean, if do you want to grow and do you want to get there? Do you have a different formula on how to get there? No, you have to take a little bit of risk and you have to experiment, and you have to maybe go to a customer and provide a totally different proposal and approach as you did for the past decade. And then maybe if one customer who is also very old school is like, no, I don't like this. We used to do it this and this way. But then you have 3 other ones who are like, oh my God, like this is so much easier, and like I like this new approach. And that's how you I don't know, get to your 50%, 100% growth year over year, and you just didn't know, and you were not willing to take the risk in the first place. And you can always make it at a small scale. I mean, if you have 50 sales reps or 50 people who are in touch with customers, train one person on your new approach. And if they mess up, I don't know, a couple of $100,000 in a $1 billion company, then yeah, it might just be it. But
Yeah.
if that concept works out, then you train the next 5 and the next 10 and see how that goes. And so you can create some sort of I don't know, buy-in by at least making the MVP, the minimal viable product test, fairly small. And if you're testing something on your homepage, you can also sometimes we have experiments that we are not so sure about. Then we just maybe run 30% of the traffic to the experiment, and keep 70% on our control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually just something you mentioned earlier on. I'm making a connection. The idea of the North Star, the North Star metric.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking now. Well, okay, it could be one business unit with a leader that has this mindset.
Yeah.
Encourage them to have that as a metric for everybody in the organization. To have one experiment a month, however small it is, but to document it and to feedback, and I don't know, something like that could be a way to encourage that culture.
Frederik,
Yes.
I'm cutting here. We're at the top of the hour, and I want to respect your time as well. Thank you so much for that session. Highly inspiring as usual. Always kind of makes it a little clearer for me, and the process becomes something that's more of a everyone should do this.
Yeah, thanks,
That
Frederik.
message needs to get out in the world, and every organization should have this running.
Anytime. I'll pass the baton to Ruben, who's sporting the same haircut.
Thank you, Frederik. It's great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.